Hello and welcome to our broadcast today, this webinar on career clarity for nurses. It is an amazing time to be a nurse. I think you have to agree with that nurses are really in the spotlight right now. They're being called heroes, warriors, they're having media interviews, their webcams, their personal diaries are being featured on television spots in the news. They are just really looking really strong. And I think this is more than any other time, it's really a time for society to recognize the value of nursing. And hopefully some really positive things will come out of this in terms of nurse empowerment, um, just more recognition for what it is that nurses do. However, on the other side of that is the whole nightmare aspect of what the pandemic has brought. All those issues with PPE, not enough ventilators, not enough rooms or beds. Nurses showed up to fight a war, so to speak, without having the correct material to be wearing, to be going into battle. Um, these are very turbulent times, and a lot of nurses are in turmoil. I know I saw let's see if I got, yeah, this weekend, there was an article that NBC News put out. It's called Why Some Nurses Have Quit During the Coronavirus Pandemic. Oh, looks backwards, but anyway, why some nurses have quit during the coronavirus pandemic. And the subheading is, right now, nurses don't feel like heroes. We feel expendable. And I think nurses have felt that way for a long time, and this COVID-19 crisis has just intensified everything that we have felt in the past, all the frustrations that we've had in the past. Today is also, I happen to be recording this particular webinar on the 200th birthday of our founder, the founder of nursing, Florence Nightingale. So I thought it would be fun to start out with a quote from her. Let's see if I can, there we are. So here's a famous quote from Florence. Were there none who were discontented with what they have, the world would never reach anything better. So if you're feeling discontented with what you have, with the career that you're having, it's a signal to do something, right? It's a signal to that something better is there for you, something better for you as well as for the world and the people that you serve. So you've come to the right place, and we're talking about the right issues today. If you are in this particular space of feeling discontented. I want to talk about, I wrote my book, Should I Leave Nursing, in the fall of 2019, and it was published in December of 2019, just before the COVID crisis came about. And I quoted several statistics in that particular, in the book, and I just wanted to kind of bring them up. Before the pandemic, let's see, 44% of nurses said they didn't have enough time with their patients. 44% often felt like resigning. 41% felt like they worked in a hostile environment where there was bullying, rudeness, and sometimes even physical violence. 39% said that work-life balance would be the most important factor in their deciding to stay in a job or not. 27% planned to change jobs within a year, and they were looking at that work-life balance. Of those who wanted to change jobs, 39% were saying that it was the work-life balance thing that was so critical to them. And then this one's really interesting about nursing and their sense of their own personal health. 66% of people, of the nurses in this national survey, I think there were over 5,000 nurses, RNs, who were being surveyed. 66% felt that the job that they had was affecting their health. And that's interesting because 2 years, this survey was done in 2019 by AMN Healthcare. they do these surveys, these national surveys of RNs every 2 years. And so in the 2017 survey, it had been 55% of nurses said that their job was affecting their health in a negative way. So in 2 years, that jumped up to 66% in 2019. But can you imagine how many nurses it's got to go up to 100% now, right? Regarding nurses who fear that the COVID-19 and their nursing career is impacting their health and perhaps the health of their families. Also, there's also been some interesting research on nurses and mental health. And the suicide rate is kind of a harsh statistic, but it's a reflection of mental health among nurses. So the suicide rate among female nurses is 58% higher than above the general population, the general female population. Statistics for men is kind of different, so they called out just women, since women are, make up 90% of the nursing workforce right now anyway. So 58% greater than the general female population. Another way to say that would be female nurses are 1.5 times more likely to commit suicide than the general female population. So people now are in a very difficult decision, and they have really hard decisions to make. The article I cited in the NBC News article talked about how guilty how just torn these nurses were, and the ones they interviewed were ones who had decided to leave nursing. They felt terrible because they really loved nursing. They felt committed to their patients, and they felt committed to their coworkers, but it just became untenable in their family situations for them to continue to be put at risk, especially under the conditions of not having enough PPE to protect themselves. But the decision to leave nursing, even before this pandemic came about, and I also have to mention too, that there's another whole category of nurses. There's the ones who are serving the pandemic, and then there are those who've been furloughed and laid off because COVID is the only thing people are treating in hospitals right now. And so, anybody who is doing elective surgery, just kind of the standard other elective things, they're non-emergency things that happen in hospitals, those parts of the hospitals have been shut down. So a lot of nurses are also sitting around waiting for, when am I going to go back to work? And that's a stressor too, when they think about, well, how often can this happen? How often can I be laid off because of these other things that go on in society? So nurses are really facing some very, very difficult decisions. I wanted to share something else with you now. Let's see, could be here. Oh, it's here. It doesn't seem to be working. I guess that's not going to share well. Okay. What I was going to share with you was my was the cover of my book, and I usually have it with me when I'm doing these kinds of things. But I was traveling internationally before the pandemic hit, and kind of all my books and everything were packed away and put into storage. So I don't have that book right now, but it's the face of a very fierce looking woman. She's got very short hair, and she's it's a side view, and she's looking very intently out. I mean, it could be out into the future, but she is obviously considering the question, should I leave nursing? Should I stay? Should I go? And she's weighing all the factors that go into that particular very difficult decision. I know we all have invested a lot of time into our careers, into our education, into getting to become an experienced nurse, right? And then the decision, like, am I going to stay in this or am I going to leave? After you've made that huge investment and part of your identity is really being a nurse, it's really a difficult, challenging thing to think about leaving. So anyway, why am I qualified to even talk to you about this particular topic? Well, I've been a nurse for 44 years. I actually got my license in 1976. And so my first 13 years I spent in different kinds of practice. I was in critical care. I did some physical rehab nursing. I did some home health. And kind of culminating that first 13 years, I worked in the mother baby space and I was a lactation consultant. And I did some training for UCLA in lactation consulting, had a little practice in my home. And then after that, I kind of got the bug to go back to school. And so then I spent the next 10 years, probably more like 12 years, between working and getting different degrees. I got a master's degree in psychology and I got a PhD in psychology as well, specializing in organizational psychology. And so I spent the next 10 to 12 years, the first part of it in research and academia. I worked for the U.S. Agency for International Development and had a really awesome experience going to Ecuador and setting up a maternal child health project we inserted it into some existing programs in Ecuador and measured the success of that project, and it went really well. And so they ended up doing a clinical trial. Anyway, very cool, very, very cool experience. I also was I was the founding director of a child abuse prevention research center. That was also a very exciting thing. And then the bug hit me. I felt like that was about the time I finished my PhD. And I was feeling a little burnout from being a nurse, well, excuse me, from research and all the writing I was doing and so forth. So I decided to switch gears and I went into business. Worked for a while in the home furnishings industry as a design psychologist and consumer psychologist, consulting on basically how this was a few years ago when they were still kind of selling pieces of furniture like they were used cars or something. So I worked with the industry to help them create a more woman-friendly, more consumer-friendly shopping experience. That was fun. And then after that, about 2005, 2006, I went into management consulting, and I worked for um, a boutique management psychology firm. We were like 100 psychologists. We were in little offices all around the world. So we were a small company, but had a big footprint. So I did some cool things like doing some trainings in Puerto Rico. I was working in the senior leadership space, and so I did some consulting with senior leadership of the CDC and the VA. Also did some executive consulting with some of the emerging and growing leaders in the Bank of America, Autotrader.com and its parent company. Just a lot of really interesting experience, and I really, really loved that work, especially doing leadership assessments. When you would get all this, they would take personality tests, and then we do a 360, asking opinions of people who worked with them and for them, and people they worked under, just to get all these different opinions about how this person was effective in their workplace or not. And so those were always very interesting conversations. And I really appreciated the people who took that as an opportunity to really grow and to become stronger leaders in service of the people that they were leading. Then the big Great Recession happened in 2008, 2009. And that world just closed up like a trap. I mean, there was just no work to be had. I applied for jobs and no one was, they would take your application and maybe give you an interview, but they would never make a decision. So in 2011, I decided actually to go back into nursing. And I had to study and take the NCLEX again and pass the NCLEX. And then I took a refresher course. And then somebody was very gracious to give me a job in home health. And that got my foot back in the door in nursing again. I honestly thought that I was going to go back to my leadership consulting when times got better, but our family really had a terrible tragedy that happened. I lost one of my children, and I found that being a nurse in the aftermath of that, just being able to nurture other people and take care of other people in a gentle, compassionate way, helped me to feel gentle and compassionate to myself too. So I basically I never did go back to the consulting work. And for the last 5 years, I've been a travel nurse. I retired in September of 2019. And, but it's gave me an opportunity to work in facilities all across the country, big towns, big cities, small towns, rural, urban. And so I really got a sense of the stressors that nurses are under all around the country. And even though every place is a little bit different, it's also a whole lot the same, like 90% the same. The same complaints about staffing and unsupportive management and bitchy colleagues and um, kind of the not enough training. So anyway, what I decided to do was to combine my knowledge, my on the ground knowledge of being a nurse, with also being a psychologist, and to put those together and create a program for nurses who are really struggling with what it is I want to do. What's next in my life. I'm not feeling uncomfortable. This isn't the right thing for me. So I decided to write this book and to create this program. I did a lot of program development, a lot of training when I was a consultant. Also when I was a nurse earlier too. So anyway, now we come to your first decision point. If you have this problem that I've been describing with concerns about your health, concerns about work-life balance, concerns about working in a hostile work environment, and you're wondering about, and you're like, about a third of other nurses at any given time who are thinking, I'm going to leave my job. They may not have decided they're going to leave nursing, but they're going to leave their job, and they're kind of trying to decide, do I want to do something else altogether, or do I want to just do something different in nursing? So if you have that problem and you think that I'm a reasonable person to listen to, that I have the credibility to help solve this problem, then I encourage you to stay. If you don't relate to the problem and you don't relate to me, then this would be an excellent time for you to just hang up and not waste any more of your time. Okay, so for everyone who's staying on the call and watching further in the webinar, we are going to move into the second section of this webinar now, which is about a little bit more about the program and how it is that we get people to the point from, should I leave nursing, should I stay, should I go, to a point of clarity where people are saying, I know exactly what I'm going to do with my career. I know where I'm taking my career. I know my next steps, and I'm really excited about it. There's no guilt. There's no fuzziness. There's no that question going around and loop in your brain like, should I leave? Should I stay? And you're just freed up to go ahead and go follow your dreams. So what I base this program on is basically the field of positive psychology. And positive psychology grew out of the scientific field of psychology. And there came a point when some of the leading psychologists decided, we're really kind of tired of just studying what makes human beings break down. Why do they get sick? Mental illness, how do we correct mental illness? We want to study what makes human beings flourish, what makes for a great life, what makes for happiness, what makes for a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment about the way people live their lives. So the whole point of the program that I walk people through, and we usually spend about 8 weeks together. There's like customized for people, but that's pretty much the core of the program. Is my emphasis is on helping you to have more and more and be more and more aware of positive experiences in your life. What lights you up, what gives you joy, and not just noticing that, but how to create that for yourself. And the reason that is important is that we know that optimism, having a positive look toward the future, that's like the spark plug. It's like the flame that lights a fire for change. If there's not optimism, if there's not a positive outlook, if there's not a belief like I can get to something else, I can make something else happen, then nothing's going to happen. So we know that positive experiences open the mind to more creativity, to more possibilities, and that when you're in that kind of state, then you can really be susceptible. You can really be open to new ideas, to new thoughts, new visions, new possibilities. So the foundation of the program is really helping people have more positive experiences. All right, so I'm going to try this screen sharing again, and hopefully I can find what it is I want this time. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah. All right, I hope you can see this. Okay, this is called the PERMA V model. These are basically called the building blocks of a flourishing life, the building blocks of happiness, the building blocks of a flourishing life and career. So let's go through it. PERMA is an acronym. So positive emotion is the first building block. We want to make sure that you're experiencing and creating more positive emotion, that you are experiencing more optimism, satisfaction, love, and inspiration in your life. We also are looking at engagement, which is being deeply captivated by interests and pursuits. It's like being in flow. Some people have that sense of engagement, being in flow, when they are like horseback riding. It's a sense of doing something that you love and that you're good at, and you are so at one with the experience that you lose track of time. So for some people that's art, for some people that's sport, for some people that is writing or some other type of creative pursuit, but everyone needs to have a particular amount of engagement in their life. Relationships, the R is for relationships, for having authentic, supportive relationships and connections in your career and your private life. The M is for meaning. This is about creating purpose and passion and fulfillment. You use your character strengths and you're committed to something bigger than yourself. A is for achievement. And that's about the growth orientation, that somebody who's living a flourishing life, a happy life, a satisfying life, they're always kind of tweaking there. They're always kind of advancing themselves a little bit. Big goal doesn't mean you have to become president of the United States. It might just mean you're going to clean your garage, but a fulfilling life means you can set little goals and accomplish them. And then the V stands for vitality, which is a commitment to your self-care, to wellness, to mind-body connections, and resilient skills. So let me take this down. I don't even know if that worked or not, but okay. So anyway, that is the PERMA model, and the program is really kind of based upon helping you find those dimensions in your life. There's all kinds of things that we do to help you experience all those different things. I promised that in this seminar, besides kind of giving you an overview of the program and how it is that you get to this great outcome, I was going to share at least 3 skills that you could use that will help you feel better in the here and now, that'll help you feel happier, more grounded, have a little bit more control over your stress, and put you on the path to career clarity. The first thing you can do, and I know you've heard this other places, and you're probably going to think, oh, Karen, why are you telling us that? Because this is absolutely shown in psychological research that this is the one intervention that we know if you do it for a sustained amount of time, even for 2 months, that you will have an increased experience of well-being. So this is something you can start doing right now. Okay, it's a gratitude journal that you would do kind of at the end of every day. But it has kind of a little twist on it, because you're going to write in your gratitude journal what went right today and why. Like, for example, what I'm going to write in my gratitude journal tonight is what went right is that the webinar happened on time and I was able to get it done. And the reason why was because I prepared enough in advance to get it done. Okay, so that's something that I'll write in my gratitude journal. Again, it's what went right today, being thankful for that, thankful for the webinar going off today, and then the why. And the why is about your self-efficacy. The why is about what you do to make things happen. And for me, it was I spent the time preparing. A second thing that you can do is it's called the game Catch Yourself. In the book, I really focus a lot on people having emotional intelligence, so that the emotions that come throughout the day, especially when you're a nurse, I mean, like, you can have 7 things happening at once and can just feel a sense of overwhelm. So a stress control technique is really to not get caught up in feeling the overload. It's like when that thing happens to you and you know you're feeling overwhelmed, you kind of step back and become an observer of yourself. There are 6 major kind of negative emotions at this point that are just normal part of the human survival mechanism. And they are fear, anger, sadness, shame, disgust, and jealousy. So for example, it's really easy to have the feeling of anger and sadness at the same time, or shame and jealousy, or fear and anger. You know, some of these combinations are there, and if you don't kind of stop and look and analyze what it is you're feeling right now and why, the feeling can overwhelm you. Because every emotion has a trigger, something that makes the emotion happen. There is a physiological response that you have. If you're angry, for example, for some people, their stomach gets really tight. There's the trigger, there's the physiological sensation, there's the thought that goes with it, like the thought under anger is like, I'm pissed off. And then there is the action that you want to do. Like, kind of the primitive reaction might be to, you know, swear at someone, maybe punch them. But and you're not going to do that at work. I know it's an exaggeration. But if you can analyze what your trigger is, and I want you to kind of go back, and I want you to do this with me right now. I want you to go and think about the last time you felt stressed out at work. And I want you to just kind of make your mind quiet now and think about, you know, when was the last time you felt just really overwhelmed, really stressed? Okay, so I'm going to take you through a little exercise now. What triggered that particular sense of overwhelm? What was the feeling in your body? Where did that emotion live and express itself in your body? What was the thought in your head? What came to mind as you were having this experience? And what did you want to do? Did you want to call the supervisor and say, hey, get up here, I need your help? What was it? If you can step back from your reactivity at any particular time by analyzing what's going on with yourself, then between the impulse of, for example, anger or fear or something that's going to make you lash out, you can make a choice regarding how you're going to express that particular emotion. Also, let's go back to that particular emotion, that particular situation we just talked about. And we talked about one emotion. Is there another emotion that was also involved? Just going to let you think about that for a second. Was it one pure emotion, or did the sense of overwhelm come from having more than one emotion at one time? I remember specifically the feeling of having a lot of admissions that came in at once. And as I analyzed that, I realized that I was angry, like, why can't admitting send us these people in some kind of reasonable order, so that we can take care of them in the appropriate way? So I was angry. But there's also a sense of fear as well. Like for some reason, I felt like I should be able to somehow, it doesn't matter, I'm a nurse, I should be able to handle whatever is thrown at me. And maybe people will think less of me if I can't handle it or if I call for help. So I realized that I was dealing with both of those emotions, and that kind of helped me know what to do. Like, for example, I did call the supervisor and say, hey, I need help, and I got help. And I realized that my fear, my insecurity about being seen as someone who couldn't handle the tough stuff was really pretty irrational, because I'm not sure who could admit 4 patients at one time. But anyway, it's helpful to step back. So I want to give you that as one of the 3 techniques to help you in this particular, in your particular current life. Okay. Besides the gratitude journal, the catch yourself in your emotion. The second one is from Qigong, and that's an Asian philosophy. And it's a physical thing. So I'm going to kind of stand up now. I think this works. I practiced it beforehand. If I stand up and show you, but it's a way like, for example, when you feel like all the stress and pressure is coming in on you from every direction. I mean, it's like there's 7 lights going on. There's all these admissions. There's the phone's ringing. There's just too much. When there's a time to kind of step away from the nursing station, and sometimes I do this actually before I go on duty to remind myself of this. I create space for myself in a sense of kind of a protective bubble. So, move my chair away here. Okay, so it kind of starts with your putting your hand on your heart like this, and then you're going to just, with your breath and with your arms, you're going to create some space or some sacred protected space around yourself. So, as I exhale, I'm going to So that is just, you do that. If you can do it once, that's great. If you can do it twice, that's better. But as you're moving your arms and you're creating space, like a bubble of safety, a bubble of protection, a bubble of, this is my space and you can't intrude into it. So even if somebody tries to intrude, you've already kind of created this boundary around you, which gives you some space to operate in, both physically and intellectually. So my promise to you is that if you go through all these 8 steps, excuse me, there's 7 steps that we do in 8 weeks. At the end of that 8 weeks, you're going to have experienced a lot of positive emotion. We'll take you also through some exercises that will help you kind of pull out from your subconscious what some of your desires might be that you haven't even thought about before. So we'll use kind of a conscious process, as well as tapping into your unconscious to find out kind of what the message is and what it is you really want as you are developing this ability and this lifestyle of being able to have more positivity in your life and see more possibility for yourself. So at the end of 4 weeks, people there's like 4 different doors you could open. One would be, I think if I make some of these mental adjustments, if, using my gratitude journal, creating more positive emotion in my life, having better relationships with my colleagues, communicating better, I can stay in this job if I just kind of apply some of these tricks to some of these tips and techniques. Also, some people decide they're going to stay in nursing, but they have a different vision for the kind of job and the kind of role that they want to have. Uh, some people just, they might want to be a nurse specialist. They might want to be a nurse practitioner. Some people, um, you know, decide they want to go back to school and teach. So it's about nursing, but staying in the field, but changing and having a clear vision of where you're going to go. The third one is kind of a blend where you're staying in your nursing job, but you are kind of developing some different skills, maybe kind of a side hustle on the side that you're going to nurture as well. So that at some point you kind of see that you want to be doing something else, or you may be seeing that you want to do nursing and something else. But you're going to develop kind of like, you're going to expand your horizons a little bit. And, perhaps you're going to go to law school. Maybe you're going to do some real estate. Maybe you're going to learn more about massage and mind-body healing, and with the vision of someday maybe having being a holistic health practitioner and bringing your nursing into that. So that's a third possibility. And the fourth one is just like, I'm done with nursing. I've gone as far as I can go here. It's as far as I want to go, and I really want to do something else. And so that's the fourth exit, and you'll have more clarity about what exactly that is that you want to do as well. And at the end of this, you can you'll create a mission and a vision statement. For example, my mission right now with my career, and I've already had a 45-year career, but I'm still reinventing myself and still doing things. Some people retire at my age. That sounds boring to me. So my vision right now is to create basically an online training company. At this point, I'm doing coaching, but at some point, I'm going to just want to travel, and I'm not going to want to talk as much, and I'm just going to want to have a company that that have really good courses online, has a really good reputation, and that kind of runs itself. I have some people helping, but pretty much it's solid and it runs itself. So that's my vision statement, to have this kind of automated training company, all right, that does excellent work, that has a great reputation as well. And then my mission statement kind of refers to now. And what I'm doing now is I'm creating the building blocks for that company. And so giving this webinar, for example, is a building block, building towards that bigger mission, toward that bigger long-term vision. So your mission statement is for now and the next little while, and your vision statement is more, 5 years and beyond. And people get to that particular process through this. People have fun with this, definitely. So what is going to get in the way of you? I mean, you can read the book. The book has this process all laid out, and you can do this. You can do this yourself. You can read the book and do it yourself. I just want to put out there, this is in the book as well. This is in like the second to the last chapter. It's like, what are the obstacles that everyone faces, and especially nurses, about this particular topic? Because change is challenging. We know that anybody who's tried to lose weight and started out really well, and then after 2 or 3 weeks, they fall off the wagon and they're back to their old habits. Some people have a hard time budgeting. They want to be better they want to save more money. But for example, the challenge of changing their behavior so that they are not spending as much, they really like to spend, and they just have a really hard time getting that money into the savings account because they like to spend so much. So they might start out, again, for a month or two, they might have a great spending plan. They might be saving money, but then kind of fall off. So change is challenging for anyone. So you need to have a really pretty solid plan to get through it. For nurses, I think these are some special circumstances that get in the way of people who want to come to career clarity. They're a nurse, they feel ambivalent, they're mad about the PPE or some other issue that's going on in your own facility, but they feel a sense of loyalty to their patients. Sometimes they feel a sense of loyalty to their team, sometimes they don't. as well. Um, but there's this pull, and part of it is people don't want to face the grief of letting go of something that's been important to them. As I said earlier, people take a long time to become a nurse. It takes a lot of study. You have to take the licensing exam, then you take your certifications. You have to get those shots. You have to, I mean, just I just, as a travel nurse, I had to keep submitting my credentials like every time I got a new contract. So that could be several times a year. I was, submitting my TB results and, my test results and my certifications and all of that. So that took up a lot of time. So it's a big investment of time. And some people really see their calling as being a nurse, that this is who I am, this is what I'm supposed to be. So the thought of having to deal with how sad they'll feel about giving that up is something that they want to avoid. So they don't engage in the process at all, because the thought of having this loss, having to go through this grief, is something that they don't want to face. So they just don't engage in the process. Um, I know something about grief. And what I've learned is that, life is full of loss. Some losses are bigger and more major than others, but that you have to, whenever there's any kind of loss, you have to accept that there's grief. It's just, grief is a part of life. Um, Grief is a human reaction. It's meant to be adaptive. It's not meant to destroy us. It's meant to help us process what we've been through, process what we've lost, and move on to something else. So don't be afraid of the grief. You'll get through it. It's okay. And don't let it be an obstacle to you not getting through and finding out what it is that your heart really wants to do. You have to, the second obstacle is just, you need to know yourself and what your distractions are. Like if you're trying to do online exercises, or like, as I've been giving this webinar, I've had these little messages coming through on the side, and sometimes I'm talking to you, so I'm not clicking away, but sometimes I can be distracted by that. I can be distracted if there's a certain type of music on that has too many words. It pulls my mind away from what I'm trying to focus on. Sometimes you have friends who want to do something that sounds cool with you, but you've committed, because you're in this process, you're committed to something else, and that can pull you away. So you need to know yourself and what your distractibility is, and then create a plan around that. Also, I mean, this is kind of related, but your habits. Like I like to say, I just love the feeling to getting up in the morning, putting on my running clothes, my shoes, running out the door, running, doing my 5 miles and coming back. I just feel so pumped. I'm so glad I had this activity in my life. It's just awesome. Well, not. That's not how I do life. I've wished, for example, that I've been that kind of person, but I'm not. I'm more of a night owl. I kind of stay up late and tend to sleep later. So getting up and running out the door is not something that I would do. But the habits that you have, like, for example, um, the habit of having coffee in the morning, for example, maybe that act of having coffee in the morning is getting in the way of doing something else. Maybe it's a way of procrastinating from getting out the door and doing your exercise. I don't know, excuse me, I'm going to take a drink. Sometimes we have just a comfy routine and we really like it, and we like our coffee in the morning. We like to take a walk. We like to stop at CVS and picked up a certain kind of candy or a certain kind of beverage. We like to go through Starbucks. I mean, we just kind of we have a comfy routine that it's challenging to think of. Oh, if I change gears, if I switch gears, I might have to change my routine, and we know that's hard to think about. So it's something you have to be aware of. Another obstacle through getting through this course on your own and kind of just seeing the process through to the end is your own emotional life. Through this program, you'll be learning how to create more positive emotion in your life. Oh, something I didn't tell you that I don't want to leave out. is that psychologists have found that for emotional balance, we need to have like 3 positive emotions for every 1 negative emotion to basically kind of buffer it out and balance it out because of how powerful negative emotions can affect us physiologically and cognitively as well. So, I mean, I really say that nurses, because of all the stress that we are encountering, we really need to kind of up that ratio to, 4 or 5 to every 1. So nurses really, to keep an emotional balance, you really, really need to work on keeping your diet of emotional nutrition, positive emotional nutrition, very strong. So that, I mean, the negative stuff's going to come. It just is. It's just part of life. The negative stuff comes in, and we just need to know how to nurture ourselves and nourish ourselves with positive emotion so that that doesn't overcome us. Our environments are also can be another obstacle to change. Like I mean, when we have a place where there's certain people and there's certain routines, like you're going on your nursing unit, you know who's going to be there. There's a certain setup. The charts are here. The computers are there. The doctor stuff is there. The medicine room is there. And we create ways of interacting with the environment and with the people in the environment that kind of keep us, it's good. It keeps a stable state going in that particular realm. But if we need to change, those routines and habits and patterns and so forth can get disrupted, and especially if more than one person's involved. It's hard enough with one person, but if you're disrupting the patterns of multiple people, that can get to be even more complicated, and you have to do, change management strategy. So be aware of the obstacles. Let me repeat them. They're grief. And my advice about grief is you just have to accept that it's gonna happen, but you'll work through it. Knowing yourself and your past experiences and what distracts you. Being aware of the habits that don't serve you, as well as trying to create new habits that will serve you so that you can accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. Having an emotional balance, knowing when you're out of emotional balance, and that's something that we teach in the course, and it's something that's in the book. As well as being aware of your environments, where your environment's of a certain structural place, as well as people, and the interaction of all that kind of creates a particular set of behaviors and reactions for you that can serve you or not, depending on the situation. So in moving forward, what is the obstacle that's going to get to you? Can you think of it? I mean, usually fear is at the root of any of those. Fear of change, fear of what's going to happen, fear of the unknown. That's usually it. Florence Nightingale had a quote that said, and I'm not going to try and do the screen again because it didn't work, but she had a quote to the effect of that, nothing ever succeeds if fear is at the root. So other people have said that too, but Florence Nightingale, our patron saint, our founder, she was wise enough back in the mid 1800s to know that fear is at the root of stagnation. So be aware of what's going to get in the way of you and of you moving forward, and of creating a pathway for yourself. So what I suggest is that here's some ways to do this. Don't do it alone. I would suggest, unless you know you are an inordinately self-disciplined person and you have total control over what you do at all times. But for most people, you need an accountability partner. So I would say do this process with somebody else and hold each other accountable for getting through this. Even kind of stronger than that, because the more accountability, the better sometimes, is that you would create some type of group and you're all kind of exploring your path, your career path now in nursing, or some people might, decide to do something else. But the more people you have that are holding you accountable to this, the better off you'll be, the more likely you'll get to the end where you'll have that again, the career clarity is, I know where I'm taking my career, I know my next steps, and I feel fantastic. I'm totally at peace. I'm not confused. I'm going for it. So that's where we want you to get. And then you can also work with me. And the advantage of working with me is that I know this program. I've been a nurse for a really long time. I'm also a psychologist. I've been a coach to executives, and I've been a counselor to moms. So I've coached and advised people, all over the gamut throughout my lifetime. So I would encourage you to think about working with me, because what we'll do is we'll have a career strategy session, and we will really get down to really what's in your way and what it is you really want in your life. And we will define that, and we'll set some goals. And then as we go through this program together, I make sure that you get the result that you're looking for. When we start out, we may not know what that career vision is, but we will, at the end of the time, this is my guarantee, that you will have clarity about what it is you want to do next in your career, and you'll know your next steps. You'll feel confident, and you'll have the courage to move forward. So people that I'm looking for are somebody who wants that, what I just talked about, but also people who know that they want that and they're willing to put the time and money into making that investment in themselves so they get the result that they want. I'm also interested in people who have an impulse toward leadership, who feel a leaderliness within themselves that they want to develop, they want to know more about. And I'm not necessarily talking about people who want to become a CNO or something like that, but someone who wants to feel more of their own self-efficacy, their ability to influence other people in a positive way, to be of service in a powerful, empowered way, to have a bigger impact on the world through your leadership. I really enjoy working with people who have those desires, and I have skills from my consulting background to be able to do that. So those are the people I'm looking for that I think I can work really well with. I'm going to give you my my calendar link here. It's Calendly, CALENDLY, calendly.com/Dr. Karen Wade. And I'll send that to you. Also, when you get this video, I'll send you an email with some materials from this particular seminar. But I really look forward to hearing from those. And I've set aside like the next 4 days to certain number of hours I've put away. I've just decided per day to dedicate to this, to the people who've been through this, who feel inspired, who feel excited, who want to explore this partnership with me to get to that wonderful result at the end of, I know what I'm doing with my career. I know my next steps, and I feel great about it. So if you want to work with me, again, it's Calendly, CALENDLY.com/Dr. Karen Wade. Okay, so thank you so much for being with me for this 45 minutes or so. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all the best, and I wish you the deepest, greatest fulfillment in finding your happiness, the career of your dreams that fits into the life of your dreams. Take care. Bye-bye.